Yeah, and he has no plans to go.
But yeah, it was good.
Good, I'm glad.
Thank you. Looks like Heather is in the attendees.
Heather, do you have your sound on?
I do.
No, you're okay. I might have to come and listen to yours because my sound won't work. What else is new? Okay. I'm just gonna move a little closer. Take my
Hi, Heather.
Whichever is easiest. I just don't know why it's gone on mine. Yeah. Okay, we'll ride. Where the hell is this plug? Oh, it's got a plug here. That's the
I'm not sure if I am coming.
oh, let's see.
Like, you're not.
No, I'm not muted. I just don't know why the sound is off and I can hear me. That's not good. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, that is fine. Does Nancy know it's 9?
Yeah.
Hi, Safdar.
Okay, whenever you're ready.
So we'll just give Nancy a minute. I know I switched the time on us for this one, so sorry about that. Does someone want to text her, Nancy, to see if she's planning on joining, and we can just give her another minute?
Yep.
Thank you.
I got it. Barbara.
You got it? Oh, my desk was dirty.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting to order because I know we have a tighter timeline today. So Barbara, let me know when you're ready.
Hang on, thank you very much. Got it.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm calling the Southborough Board of Health meeting to order on Tuesday, March 8th, 2022 at 9:04 a.m. And Dr. Medina and my...
Nancy thought it was 9:30, but she'll jump on.
Okay, thank you. And Dr. Medina and myself are present, and we should have Nancy shortly. So the first order of business is public comment. So Mr. Litt. Good morning, Mr. Litt.
Good morning. I know you've got a long agenda. I won't take terribly long. But I think it's time for you folks to return to in-person meetings. I mean, virtual meetings were originally a public health measure. You now have, group activities without masks and social distancing being encouraged. I think a number of other boards and committees, including I think the Greater Boroughs Board, has returned to in-person meetings. I think, there are other benefits, but I think those should stand on their own merits. And I think you should set an example and return to in-person meetings. It's my 2 cents for the morning.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Dunnington.
Hi, good morning. It's Andrew Dennington from the Select Board, and I would like to make a break, put something on your radar screen. I sent an email last evening about a article that the Select Board is sponsoring on the warrant, and I think I may have gotten the number wrong. It may have been actually article number 29 in the current version, but basically it is a very simple warrant article that would require any boards and committees with rulemaking authority under the town code or state law to, before adopting rules and regulations, to just post them publicly and hold a hearing on it before you adopt it. Pretty simple. Now, Mr. Litt, who I don't know if he's still in the audience, he made a good suggestion that, well, what if there is a situation where a board would need to issue a rule on an emergency basis? I can't really think of any board other than the Board of Health where this would really be applicable. And, I'm thinking here about, obviously, COVID. So I don't know, and I have not taken the time to go back through the town code to understand exactly how your procedure works, but I wanted to put this on your radar screen. So, and I would really encourage you to also get Mr. Litt's input as well. Is there a situation, have you learned from the last couple months where you feel like you could not comply with this 14 requirement? It'd be in the public interest to do something like institute a rule, and then you have a hearing very shortly thereafter. It would only be valid up until something like that. That's it.
Thank you. So I think on this one, I did not have this listed on the agenda for this morning's meeting. So what I'd like to do is, as all warrant articles will go through the town council review. So what I'd like to do is get town council input and then put this on our next agenda for discussion, if that makes sense to everyone.
Chelsea, may I offer a quick follow-up?
Sure.
I think it's really kind of a policy matter, whether you think you would need it, and then town council could work with you on the how.
Yeah. I mean, the one that sticks out in my head, Andrew, is like the townwide mask mandate.
Okay.
I don't know how that was a pretty quick turnaround, as was the removal of it. So I just would want to walk through some scenarios with town council to make sure that we're.
I think that's the right way to do it.
Okay.
And timing. As I said in the email, I think we're trying to finalize the warrant by April 3rd. So
Okay.
Please keep that timing in mind. Thank you.
Okay. So we may
And
need
that-
to have a quick meeting just on this item. Okay.
Okay. I think
All
that's
right.
all I have for today.
Thanks,
Nice to
Andrew.
see you. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay. Ms. DeMaria. Good morning.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Debbie Jamuria, 58 Flag Road. My question has to do with the noise bylaw, and some work that, good work that the committee's been doing, and I see that it's on the agenda today. I can hold my comments if you're going to be doing sort of a walkthrough, and I'd be happy to do that. One question that came up at the last meeting, I think it was just, I'm not sure if it was the end of last week. I think it was the Friday night. There was a suggestion that the Board of Health could set a policy around noise that would be outside of what the noise bylaws group is trying to do. And so I think Heather's probably maybe following up on this as well. I was just wanted to see if that is something that could be clarified today.
Great, thank you. So my intent was to not walk through the entire document on the noise bylaw, but on the specific section that relates to the Board of Health piece, Debbie. So I'm fine if you want to comment on our discussion after that, after we kind of deliberate on it. If you want to, you just feel free to raise your hand and I'll keep a lookout for you if you want to do it that way.
Okay, well, actually, if I could just make a general comment.
Sure, go ahead.
So under the law, there really is no specific section that applies that's called industrial law, industrial noise. So in fact, Board of Health are responsible for all noise. And so that's one of the issues that I have that I wanted to raise is there is a specific section that Heather's been working on with the committee having to do with noise emanating from industrial areas. But the law is written more broadly than that. So it could be that there's an egregious noise coming from somewhere else that's not in an industrial section, not in a commercial section of town. There's been examples that some of the people who have called in and even some of the committee members have brought up. For example, there was some HVAC problem or something at one of the schools. So that's not really industrial. There could be something, it could be, for example, very loud lawn mowing equipment. You have, let's say, 5 landscapers arrive at one time and they're all riding hurricanes. These are 100 decibels or something, 90 decibels. That actually is covered by the Board of Health. So one of my concerns is that there is a section that I know Heather's been working on and refining, maybe even discussing with you, but Board of Health is responsible for all noise, not just what's called, industrial noise. Certainly we think of industrial as being the loudest and most egregious, but I see that there's sort of opportunity for other sections that the board could be looking at. And I mean, and just generally, I think that one thing that this, although there's a lot of good things that are covered in the proposed bylaw, and I think that the committee is hoping that it will pass. But one thing that's really lacking is the incentive for any kind of more quiet equipment. So in the way that the lighting bylaw went through, and there was sort of an incentive, like nobody's going to get beaten up for having like the wrong kind of light bulbs, on their house, that not nighttime light, but that as equipment gets changed over, as you change your light bulb, there's incentive to kind of start using more night friendly blue light or whatever the type is, et cetera. This particular, my feeling is this proposed bylaw sort of excludes loud riding hurricane kinds of equipment. It was brought up by a couple of people, and myself included, that that really needs to be kind of folded in some way. Maybe we shouldn't single out leaf blowers, but there are, for example, riding leaf blowers that can hit 90 to 100 decibels. That's quite different than a backpack leaf blower, kind of thing. So these really, really loud noises are, in my opinion, really, I think I'd like to see some input from the Board of Health. And it's also not clear who regulates that, whether that's the police, whether it's the building commissioner, if it's associated with the project, for example, or whether it's the Board of Health. So Board of Health, my understanding from the law is your purview is not simply industrial noise, it's all noise. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. One last round of public comment, if anybody has anything. Okay, great. Thank you very much for everyone on your input this morning. And if there's any follow-up items, we'll certainly loop back around. And obviously we'll be talking about the noise bylaw. Okay. Good morning, Nancy. And I think
Good morning. Can you guys even see me? I'm having trouble setting.
we can't see you, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'll work on it.
Okay.
And
and-
was it ever at 9:30, the meeting? I thought
It was at 10:30.
9:30. I'm just wondering why I thought still had
I'm sorry.
9:30.
No,
Well,
but I'm the reason why we had to move it up because I didn't realize my kids don't have school today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How I missed that. Okay.
I obviously missed the school calendar, so
Oh, that's okay.
sorry about that.
That's all right.
So there was one comment, Nancy, just so you know, from Mr. Dennington related to a warrant article that's coming forward. We got an email about it tonight, but I didn't have it listed on the agenda. So we'll have to follow up with that at a separate meeting.
Okay.
Okay. So on to approving meeting minutes. So I apologize for getting the February 2nd one out late last night. But did anybody have any comments on February 2nd, February 8th, or February 15th?
No.
Okay.
No, they look good.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I move that we approve and release the February 2nd, 2022, the February 8th, 2022, and the February 15th, 2022 meeting minutes as presented.
I second the motion and vote aye. All right, how do I get one?
And I vote aye.
Okay, and Malinowski's aye. Thank you. So I think we're actually all caught up then, Barbara, on minutes. So thank you for getting those done. Next on the agenda is the recommendation for third-party audit for food establishments. So Heather, do you want to take this one?
I don't know if Diane's gonna be able to make up. There was something, so I don't think she was gonna be able to make it, but we had discussed, I think in a prior meeting, about a plan for restaurants who had repeated violations and inspections to put them on a service that was almost a third party who would be able to do frequent inspections and see that they were be able to meet those. We did have a complaint a couple weeks ago. Well, not a complaint, but we had a food poisoning that we went on for investigation and inspection at a restaurant from a family who had gotten takeout from a restaurant. So we did inspect the restaurant again, and there was some violations. So we had wanted to think about, did last time we take a vote to this, or, you know, if Diane and I think it's appropriate to put them on this framework, or I don't know exactly how we left it, but I know we did discuss it before, this sort of third-party vendor to help in specific cases with repeated violations.
Yeah. I mean, I think we should take a vote, because then I think that it authorizes you and Diane to kind of take the next step.
Yeah.
And it also takes, I mean, we're essentially moving the responsibility to a third party to take care of that. So that would be my preference, is that we actually
that sounds right.
formalize.
I think so. And who would the third party be? Like, it's an outside vendor. Who would we?
It's an outside vendor, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think she's worked with some through other towns before.
Okay.
I don't know the name, but I think she does have experience with that.
Nancy, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't really have anything to add to that at all, to be honest with you. I'm still trying to figure out.
Do you want us to try right? Do you want us to try to get a list of who she's used, or
I'm sorry.
Do you want me to try to get a list of vendors that she's used?
Yeah.
Sure.
And it's one establishment at this point, Heather?
Yes, although, in December, we tried to get to all the establishments and there was a few that had some violations and, we're really, intent on getting back to some of these places in the next week or two. So it's just, her scheduling keeps changing with other things, so that keeps kind of falling through, but we're intending to give us, but at this point, there was one, and I don't know if we're even 100% there on this one, but we're definitely looking at it in that light.
Okay. So do we want to take a motion on this one? And if more come up, then this board wants to know,
Okay.
is that how we want to do it? Okay.
Sure.
So I'll make a motion that the Southborough Health Department engage with a third-party auditor for food establishments to assist the food establishment that currently has some concerns.
Okay,
Has repeated violations. We've been in there.
Has
twice.
repeated violations. Okay, I amend my motion to say that. Thank you.
And I second and vote aye.
and I third and vote aye.
Okay, and Malinowski's aye.
And just on another food related topic, there had been an open grant for, through the FDA about community level. The first step was sort of a self-assessment, sort of an investigational to see where we stand with there's definitely some education pieces in some of our food establishments that are not there with staff, that I can tell you that that's lacking at a number of places. But the self-assessment piece, we had sort of been planning to do as a boroughs, but in the end, the Southborough was the only one who applied and we did get $4,500 for Southborough. And that would probably as well be sort of, but it's such a small piece because I thought it was going to be a couple towns that we were going to get a third-party vendor to help us look at our town in that light about where we are overall with food safety in our town, but we did get a $4,500 piece. So about looking at our self-assessment about where we are with our food establishments.
So who would do that?
So we thought that we had already picked out a vendor actually between the 3 or 4 towns, but we thought it would be sort of 15,000. Do you see what I'm saying? Like to go to an outside vendor. Now we have $4,500. I don't know if this outside vendor wants to work on that small of a scale. But again, I'll speak with Diane because she's our food rep for the area.
Thank you.
And I apologize. Oh,
We're like
Sorry, Nancy.
oh, sorry. I'm having so many technical difficulties here, but it's not me making a weird noise. I have a cat purring on my lap. I didn't want you to think there was something weird going on
yeah,
here.
Barbara heard that.
Cut her off.
Thank you. Okay. So I guess, Heather, if you could just keep us updated on how we can best use that grant.
Okay.
And I know there's a boroughs meeting tomorrow,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
maybe that will come up as well. Okay,
Mhm.
great, thank you. Okay, Ken's expansion as it relates to noise. Heather, do you want to give an update on this?
So the planning board is currently looking at the plans for the expansion of the warehouse. And the warehouse, they're looking to expand, I believe, the non-refrigerated section to make the warehouse larger. And kind of 2 things I'm thinking about with that. First of all, I did ask in whether this would change the amount of truck traffic, truck traffic coming in and out of the site. I was told by their attorney that the truck traffic would be a net neutral. Currently some things are housed in the warehouse in Marlboro. So they said there would be less back and forth with internal trucks that go between Marlboro and Southborough. But there would be more trucks, obviously potentially, that go from outside of Ken's system because they have more product held there that will be distributed. So that is what I was told about that. The expansion is just going to include, like, they almost have robotic arms that goes and picks up the material. So there's not going to be more folks. They're just going to make the track longer. It looked like to me, Diane and I did walk through the site. It doesn't look like there's going to be more employees there potentially, or that type of traffic in terms of septic or parking. The employee number seemed stable. And then the other thing we're thinking about is the expansion that was done when they moved the operations to a daytime to a 24/7 operations, and they moved the docks, the loading bays for the trucks. They moved from the east side to the west side. And the planning board and zoning board is also looking at this as well. There's a Southborough regulation concerning enclosing truck bays, and the enclosing could potentially help with the noise, although there's also noise, I believe, from idling trucks outside of the bays. But the regulation reads that the bay should be enclosed if that was 50 feet from a residential property, which it does not, or it said if there's frequent nighttime use of this trucking, and this is 24/7. So this is used basically every night. So that would be frequent. So that's something that kind of didn't happen when this was initially done, but it is a time to re-review that.
Okay, and I know that the last planning board meeting, this was
The
extended.
Yeah, the latest is March 14th, I believe.
Okay.
That's coming Monday.
Okay.
It's on the agenda again, but it has been pushed back the other 2 times.
Okay.
And
Go ahead, Heather. Sorry.
if there was any guidance you guys could provide on the enclosures, because I did think they wanted me to comment on that at the March 14th meeting.
So I've been following the planning board discussions and looked back at kind of the ZBA opinion that was given, I think, almost a year ago. And there was definitely a consensus on the ZBA that, Ken's continued to work with mitigating any noise. The way that I read the code is similar to your interpretation, Heather, with it, even though it's not 50 feet from the residential line, that it is a 24/7 operation. So I would definitely be interested in hearing how Ken's could enclose that and what that would mean. I would hope that would mitigate some of the noise levels, but I do think it falls within our building code. But that's kind of, my outside looking in on, kind of watching what's been discussed over the last couple of months. I guess I would like to hear from the building inspector on the enforcement of that reg in the code. But Safter and Nancy, do you have any comment on that?
Two things. Number one, so with this expansion, how would that, you said probably net equal in terms of truck trafficking? Would that ever make it more at nighttime versus daytime, depending on things? Because to me, when I look at noise, I look at nighttime noise as definitely being, more of a overall health concern for folks. And then, what is the closest that we have? I mean, 50 feet just doesn't sound like a huge distance to me in terms of the amount of noise a truck can generate. But I guess if that's already built in, I don't know if we can do anything about that. So those were my 2 comments about that.
So this expansion, it's interesting this is going on. We never really solved the initial problem, I feel like, from previously. So, like, I feel like this is just going to add insult to injury. Did they ever really do anything to resolve the previous issues that people were complaining about?
Right. Well, true. That's been 2 years. That was 2019. And so we currently are working with Ken's on the abutters on that side. And there are many hundred feet, but they still hear noise, but it's intermittent. It's not all the time. We think it may be truck idling. And so Ken's did have a small meeting with some resident abutters and is having given contact numbers and having them call when the noise is loud, basically. And then Ken's is kind of looking at their operations, their number of trucks out there. But I do think it's kind of frustrating for neighbors because they've been at this for 2 years without anything. But at the very moment, I would say Ken's is saying they're looking at their operations and seeing if they can do something in terms of the numbers of trucks or idling location, looking at trucks and see if they basically are getting less complaints on noise. So they're kind of looking
have they been getting fewer complaints?
So the complaints, my understanding, are a little variable because a snowman, like if they have a snowstorm, and then that can block some noise. There's other variables. I think it's also seasonal with leaves on the trees, but yeah. So I think right now we're in a.
What have they actually done? I guess.
Exactly. Are they looking at the
thing.
enclosures or the wall? They had a wall. But
Okay.
now the operations changed, so the location of the wall would need to be moved because the operations changed. So no, I think they're looking at their operations and their flow of the trucks right now.
Heather, do we have, I know it's inconsistent on what it is, but when it does happen, can we pinpoint or at least, like, if it's not the trucks that are getting unloaded and loaded, then the enclosure is not going to help, right?
Right. So
Because if it's the idling, okay, got it.
Right. But they idle because they have to keep refrigeration temperature. So they idle, I believe, even when they're in the bay. I mean, now they're outside bays, but they still idle at that time. But that is what Ken's is trying to do now, is to determine, when someone complains in real time, if they have certain trucks stop their, operations for a few minutes, although they're keeping refrigerated product, so they can't take off for a while, their engines, but that's what they're working to have with neighbors. Well, is the noise quieter now that we've turned the trucks off, basically? But
This is probably a stupid question, but when you're in an RV or something, you have the capacity when you're parked somewhere to
plug in. I keep asking about plug in. They said their trucks don't have capacity
to
plug in.
Exhaust that from idling is, regardless of the noise, that doesn't seem like it's good for the air quality either.
No, I asked about plug in. They keep saying no.
Ability to like plug the refrigeration in or have some kind of means to that they wouldn't have to be idling. I don't understand.
Yeah. No, that's a good question, Nancy. I don't think there's an absolute requirement that the trucks have that capacity to plug in. I think in California more of them do or something, but they're telling me the trucks that don't have the capacity to plug in.
It just seems strange in 2020.
Strange that we exactly
to do that.
Exactly. Yep.
I'm a little concerned about the constant, exhaust and stuff coming out of these trucks as well.
Correct.
Yeah.
Does this expansion then include more storage? It seems like would they store less on a truck? Is that the idea? I mean, what's the idea behind? Because I haven't, I wasn't involved initially last year with Jen. So to me,
Storage, but my understanding is it's room temperature storage. So it's the trucks that keep refrigerated product. I believe it's not more refrigerated product storage.
so their capacity isn't going to include more refrigeration in their warehouse where they can store these things, so they don't have to be stored on the trucks. Because that would help. I think that's one thing that would help.
Right.
Huh.
So I think the consensus here is whatever mitigation strategies will work to reduce the noise, and if it can reduce any air quality issues too. I think that's the direction that this board is supportive of. Is that fair? Is that fair, Nancy? Okay.
Yes.
And we have a few hands in the
Thank you.
audience. I assume it's on this topic, so I'm going to ask Ms. DeMaria and Ms. Dunderdale to comment. So Ms. DeMaria, I'm going to go to you first.
Hi, everybody. Debbie Demiria, 58 Flag Road. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. To Nancy, well, first, Chelsea, to your comment, it's really unclear what the cause of the noise is at Ken's, but it's probably a combination of several things. And I don't know that we'll ever get to the bottom of it, but the combination is truck idling, which is illegal under Mass General Law, right? Longer than 5 minutes. It's the noise at the bays where the trucks do need to run, especially as they're refrigerated. So just for that loading and unloading period. And then the third is these compressor trucks. Now, I just wanted to point out that under Mass General Law, the 5-minute truck idling, or actually it's vehicle idling, I think, doesn't apply to the delivery or pickup of vehicles that require the operation of the engine to load or unload. And so the trailers that are sitting out there that are running, they're not involved with the transfer of material or goods. So my impression is that that is also illegal activity. I'd be interested to know what town council says, but they're just sitting there. So in my opinion, they can go somewhere else, because we know that there's up to like 40 or more of these trucks that are just running. The other thing I wanted to say is that we did at our house anyway at 58. Well, let me just say there are about 18 or more neighbors now who have complained. Now, not officially to the building inspector, but I'm keeping a list of neighbors that have complained either at the public hearing, could be planning board or ZBA. And this is recent. This isn't from 2014 when the operations were on the other side. They have written letters. They hear noise across the street. We hear noise on Flag Road. There's noise on Deerfoot. There's noise on Orchard, and there's noise on Eastbrook Farms. So this is really a public health concern. This is at least 18 to 20 households that I know of. During COVID, it's very difficult to try to find your neighbors, except for if they're outside and you're basically asking them for their, email and stuff. But that's, that's what we know. Now, we did as neighbors, and Heather, thank you to Heather, she organized a group of us to get together. It wasn't comprehensive, but as Heather said, it was qualitative, so we can get an understanding of what some of the others, in the neighborhood are hearing. And, it's very confirming of what I've been complaining about for a lot of years. We heard some neighbors say the noise is crazy. We heard another neighbor that we didn't know, we met for the first time, say that the noise was subatomic, that he plays his music inside his house. He likes to listen to jazz, and he hears the truck rumbling over the music in his house. So this is really, something that is pervasive all around. Now, as part of the little group that met, and I think there was maybe 5 of us or something, we were asked to provide additional information. We did at our household. My husband, Kevin Farrington, did text the manager, Jim Bourne, and Jim did a little unofficial study with him and said, can you hear it now? How about now? And the noise at our house went from a constant hum, like a truck idling, like vibration, to absolutely nothing, like somebody pulled the plug. And it was for 6 minutes. And he texted him and did everything, what he wanted to do, like a little study. Can you hear the noise now? What about noise now? What about noise now? And then after after a few minutes, the noise started up again. We have a sound meter at our house, like a lot of people in our neighborhood do, and it's hitting about 60 decibels at night. And it's about 35 during the day. Could be 40. The suburbs are getting louder. We know that. So could be 35, could be 37, could be 40 during the day, but we're hitting 60 at night. And that is because of what we're hearing down at Ken's. So there are a couple of mitigations. And Nancy, you put your finger on it. The law is written about refrigeration or whatever, only if plug-in is not available. After 20 years of plug-in legislation in California, many trucks now have the capacity to plug in. I asked Jim Bourne at our neighborhood meeting if they've even asked about their trucks and whether the trucks have the capacity for that. And he said he's never asked. So they could be plugging in. The compressor trucks don't need to be sitting down there. They can go down to a truck stop. They shouldn't really be down there anyway, because they're not actively engaged in the transfer of foods and goods. The enclosure, no truck idling is another. And we need to be serious about that. When we've had the police go down, they said, yeah, the trucks were idling. Okay, but our police need to tell them, turn off your truck or go to the truck stop down in Shrewsbury. That is the closest one. I want to let you know about enclosure is different than covered. So some people think about covered as being like a lean-to or some sort of plastic thing or something. And a truck enclosure is a completely sealed, like drive into a garage, close the garage door. So because of the fumes and the emissions inside the enclosure, Ken's will not want those trucks. Anybody with that kind of a system will not want those trucks emitting any kinds of fumes. There's also HVAC and other things. So it's sealed and it's temperature controlled so that you would not need those trucks sitting outside. So these are all mitigation strategies in addition to a sound barrier wall, which, as someone, I think Heather pointed out, there is a sound barrier wall now on the east side, but their noise is coming from the northwest side. So there's quite a number of things that they could do. And to Nancy's point, we've not really seen them do anything in these 2 years. And because we're not complaining every night, we're trying to give the police chief a break and work with the boards of health, planning, and others who are dealing with this sort of thing. The attorney for Ken's makes an erroneous statement that if they don't hear from us, that everything is okay. But I don't think that you want, in town, neighbors, calling the police and clogging up the lines every single night, because the truck idling happens every single night. Mass Boards of Health puts out a model bylaw that talks about a 10 decibel delta during the day as an acceptable noise for, activities that happen during the day, but only 5 decibels at night. So we know from the truck study that Ken's has done, they are exceeding that. So the question really is, what can the Board of Health do? Because the sound that's coming at night, we received the files from Ken's. I think I've shared it with you, but if not, I'll make sure that you have all the materials. About 40%, and to Dr. Medina's point, about 40% of the noise now is coming from nighttime noise. That's based on the truck study from a couple years ago. noise study. They also collected truck data. But also Mr. Pizzoni has made that comment a couple of times, and that's the number that they use. And it also depends on your definition of night. Mass Associations of Boards of Health considers nighttime noise to be, no noise on weekends, no Saturday, no Sunday, no holiday, from 7, I think it's from 6 p.m. to 7 in the morning. That's what the state uses for healthy living. So I also am telling you this because I do think some of this needs to be put into our noise bylaw that's being drafted. I know Lisa would like to speak, but I just want to let you know that, some of the things that we're experiencing, and no, nothing has changed in 2 years. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ms. Dunderdale, I'm gonna bring you over.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Good morning. Yes.
Good morning. Lisa Dunderdale. I'm at 122 Deerfoot Road. I'm also a member of the Noise Bylaw Committee, and certainly I know Debbie has done her homework, and I've learned quite a bit from her during her talks to the Noise Bylaw Committee, and certainly today. So I was just listening in on everything, and you talked about the trucks changing, that there was going to be less back and forth between Marlboro. But I guess as you were talking about that, I was saying to myself, what type of trucks are going to be coming into this new extension? Will there be more refrigerated trucks? And it may be less traffic, but is it going to be creating more noise? So that might be something you'd want to find out about. And certainly from what Debbie just said about them idling, and you're not allowed to idle in the parking lot unless they're moving product back and forth. So that was just something that I was observing, and I wanted to just bring that question up. Certainly during the process of creating this noise bylaw, I thought it would be the perfect opportunity to set a different standard for nighttime noise, and an opportunity to evaluate. So if that's something that the board is interested in doing, so that you're setting a standard, not just for Ken's, but for any company that's coming into Southborough. I know that most of the commercial land is backed right up against residential, and I'm sure that if we can set a standard now, then these organizations will have an understanding of what they need to do to mitigate noise. So I'm hoping that we can write it into the bylaw. I think it's where it needs to be. Certainly, I didn't know that I would need to call the building inspector if there was an issue with Ken's noise. Not sure how it gets enforced. So the noise bylaw is a great place to have this information available to residents to keep them healthy. And so just so you know, I have a meeting at 10, so I'm going to have to hop off soon, but I'm hoping that the Board of Health will consider helping us with including these standards in the noise bylaw. Thank you. And Heather's been great to providing us guidance as we take a look at the standards for the noise bylaw. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Okay. So Heather, do you have what you need from a planning board perspective?
Mhm.
Okay. Nancy or Safdar, anything else you want to add?
Do we want to, the numbers that Debbie gave, I think are sounds like they're pretty standardized numbers of the delta of 5 decibels for nighttime and the nighttime hours. So do we want to start drafting something up to put that in? Or is that already part of the noise bylaw?
So
proposed, because I don't know much about what's going on with the noise bylaw.
Right, I think that's right, leading into the next topic.
Yeah, that's
So
next
the-
agenda.
Right, so I think that, anyway, sort of enforcement and authority about Board of Health, I do think that, police are often called for kind of, vehicle traffic, partying traffic, there's kind of guidance on the Massachusetts website about this type of noise called Board of Health, this type of noise called police, but basically, kind of the more chronic, I think of it as more chronic or stationary or long-term. But yes, we can get called about any type of noise. People call me about construction noise, et cetera, highway noise, Anyway, the bylaw, I think the committee, they're getting towards the end, like their final draft, I think, is coming out this week. And the committee is somewhat, I guess, uncertain about where to put this section that's industrial. I would call it, the regulation calls it stationary, industrial noise. And they are kind of debating about putting it in. What does that mean to enforcement in our town and kind of legal standing with this previous mass regulation and sort of a DEP that the mass quality of air standards kind of put forth about this industrial noise being 10 decibels above baseline. That's already written in chapter but do we include that in the bylaw as kind of a first step? Do we include that? Is it informational? Are we just kind of endorsing this so that it has, this is in our bylaw as well that goes through our citizens, but this is already regulation. But then the question is, you put regulation in by number and those may change. It's been about 30 or 40 years they haven't changed, but they put it in by kind of the actual, the actual chapter citation. And then the question is about tightening that regulation. So with the nighttime standards, because that is not in kind of the state and the DEP guidance. So that is from a Mass Association of Health Boards template for Board of Health to use in terms of looking at noise regulations town by town. It is not, and from my understanding, that 5 decibels at night, although it's recommended by MAHB, I don't think it's in many bylaws on a town level. When I look at some of the other towns, they're going at it a little bit differently. They're using decibel a lot. So they'll say things about like 50 decibels, 60 decibels by day or 50 by night, so Deb's numbers that she's getting are higher than what I've seen in towns who are discussing it in a different way. In this bylaw, it's not going to go by decibels by day and decibels at night. It's only for this one piece about putting in the 5. Now, I have a contact at Mass DEP from the Central Region who works on noise. So, I talk to her about this frequently. And like I said, she's not aware that it's in this way in other town bylaws. They do it differently. Like I said, they kind of do 50 decibel, maximum, they put it in that way versus the, baseline and above ambient trigger for mitigation. And then she said that she didn't know, but at some point that might be tightened. These numbers were literally like 30 or 40 years old. And so Mass DEP does have kind of best practice guidance that when they're working with new kind of bigger projects, sources, they have sort of best achievable control is for 5 decibels at nighttime. So they work with organizations, but it's not in a statewide code as of now. So I think that's the question about, and I think the noise bylaw committee is a bit split about putting that in a noise bylaw versus the Board of Health passing it as a regulation. And, for one, the noise committee wants to know, would this be helpful, for enforcement with industrial noise sources in our town? Would it be helpful if it were in the bylaw? And then they're like I said, they're sort of split. And I think ultimately this goes, town council will review on their input on putting a tighter regulation. Last meeting, there was thought from a resident, or I believe a committee member of advisory, I think, that, going through as a regulation is something that may have a smoother path, because if you're trying to change the noise bylaw, that would go in front of town meeting again. But doing the regulation, it sounds like if we do it as a Board of Health regulation, is still going to go through the process, of a posted public hearing that has to be posted 2 weeks in advance in the newspaper, sort of how we'll do for tobacco. These things you do post and you do. So anyway, so that was kind of all the considerations about where to put this piece. And do we want to tighten the 5 decibel as a town of Southborough, either by Board of Health or as the noise bylaw?
So I feel like due to the pandemic, we've been a little, preoccupied, but these poor residents have been dealing with this now for a couple of years with, you hear Ken's doing, I don't think they're doing enough, quite honestly. And I think enough is enough. So I do think we need to proceed, because listen, I don't sleep well. And if for 2 years I was listening to this every night and the Board of Health wasn't doing anything about it, I think they've been very patient due to all we've had to deal with the pandemic and other pressing issues. But I do think we need to proceed with this. I mean, they want to expand and do all this stuff, and they really haven't done their due diligence to their neighbors, who they're kind of responsible for. You're part of a Southborough neighborhood now. You're backing up to these neighbors. You need to be respectful. You're not in an industrial park. You're in someone's backyard. So I do think we need to be a little more assertive with Ken's and take some of the burden off of the police. I think it's very nice of these neighbors to be considerate that they're not calling the police every night, but then they're giving, Ken's a reason to think that things are fine because they're not calling all the time. And quite honestly, not to sound flippant, but I'm sick of seeing this for 2 years on our agenda with nothing really happening. That's where I'm at, I guess.
I agree. I think, whenever we do it, the sooner we can get a regulation in place from the Board of Health, the better, I think, with this. And again, the process part of it, we can look at, but I think I agree with Nancy. I think it's, the sooner we do this, the better. I think this is a public health issue, and it's definitely within our purview to make a regulation for public health. So.
And I agree with all of that. I think the question is, do we want to recommend that actual decibels get into this bylaw and go through town meeting? Or do we, as the Board of Health, do a rules and reg with a public hearing, not go through town meeting and through this bylaw, have the bylaw reflect our authority, right? And not be specific on the decibels, and then go through the process of doing an actual rules and reg as it relates to noise specific to our purview. I think that's what the question is, right, Heather?
I would choose the latter.
I would choose the latter as well. I think a rules and reg, and I think, we can amend that to however we want then, right? Even if we don't put in specific decibels, do we have the authority to have Ken's measure their decibels at some point? Let us know.
Right. I mean, that's one of the potential next steps, is ask for another sound study. The sound study in 2020 was not done. They didn't even measure an ambient level. So that noise study was not done appropriately. And so that would be, in my thought, if we were going to ask Ken's to do another sound study, and if we had that in place with the 5 decibels at night, it's just more likely to reach that threshold if we're asking them to do another noise study that then would be above threshold and would be requiring them to mitigate.
I feel like we've done study after study after study, and it's been proven that the noise is not
Well,
acceptable.
no, see, Ken would say the noise study done in 2020 doesn't prove that they're that they're non-compliant. However, the study showed noise levels, but it didn't. Right now, that trigger is for 10 decibels above ambient, Nancy, but if there's no ambient measured, there's no 10 decibels above ambient. So it doesn't technically, the sound study didn't technically meet the recommended compliant trigger by Mass DEP for noise sources.
I mean, once you're waking up neighbors, you've already created a public health issue. Once
Yes, yeah, I agree. If
2
you
years, the public health issue is there. We may not have the
Right.
quantitative numbers to prove it. but
Correct.
It's already there. And
Right.
I
Right,
agree.
and so that's discussion too about how to proceed with next steps. You know, do we work on, I mean, I suppose one tack would be, let's work on mitigation. Let's look at the sound wall. Let's look at the enclosures. You know, would they help? Let's look at truck idling not on site. And if that is happening, that's happening. If it's not, do we then push for another sound study where that DEP is willing to, you know, kind of approve the methodology before it's done? And then especially if we have the 5 decibel trigger in place for nighttime. And I do think nighttime is more worrisome noise than daytime, absolutely. And you know, that, you know, Mike Ken's, I don't know what they would push back with in terms of working on mitigation as is, or maybe requiring another sound study to note that they're out of compliance with Mass DEP or with our regulations. Anyway, so yeah, that would be just some things to consider going forward.
Just a thought, Heather, that, you know, to Nancy's point, you know, obviously we know there's a problem, right? And I just don't know if doing another noise study is gonna, like, I want to know what is gonna resolve.
I
the issue.
agree. Oh, I
And I don't
agree.
think
If
it's
they're resolving the issue,
You can do
I
studies till the
absolutely
cows come
agree.
home. and It's not going to
I
change.
agree. I don't think we
Right.
need a noise study. I'm just saying
mean-
that might be the pushback from Ken. I don't
Yeah.
think we need a noise study. Also,
Okay.
the other tricky thing with this noise is, like, if you have a snowstorm and they plow and they have a bank of snow, then they don't hear the noise. So what if you're doing the noise study and for
Yeah.
some reason that night is quiet? You know, like, I
Right.
don't think, I'm with you on that.
Okay,
Right.
so,
And this regulation would more be pointing, but obviously it's a townwide thing, would be more pointing to tightening up kind of regulations in terms of sources above ambient, but that's only really ascertained with a noise study, if you will.
right,
But we can work on this now.
Yeah.
And see where we get. I
And it
agree. I
is-
don't think we need a noise study
okay,
Right. And if we were to do one,
unless we're getting pushback, right?
right. I mean, I think it should be documented when they were doing it, was there snow? I mean,
Yeah.
you could plan
Yeah.
these things to get the results you want, I'm sure.
Yeah. That sounds
Yeah.
great.
so I think with the Ken's noise, I don't know that we necessarily need to wait to give our, you know, the direction that we would like to see this go in. I don't know that we need to have the rules and regs in place for that. Am I right, Heather?
True.
Okay,
You know, those rules and regs are already in place for for Massachusetts. You know,
Right.
even if they're not in our town, they're already there.
so does it make sense I think that's the direction we're kind of leaning towards, is not having the specific decibels in the noise bylaw and having the rules and regs within our purview, under our control, you know, going through the proper process. And then if we need to pivot, then we would redo it and, you know, have the appropriate hearings to go along with that.
Yes.
So in
yes.
terms of the bylaw, would you recommend just kind of leaving it how it is? At least it's sort of endorsing what the current kind of state.
Yes. That would be my opinion. I mean, I hear,
I mean, it does carry some further, I guess, weight if it's again in kind of the basic informational.
Yeah. I think that then, I mean, if you don't have any numbers in there and you're referencing what your
Right.
jurisdiction is per the state, if the state changes, then it automatically. will-
Right, I would
will
think if just the
change.
numbers are in there, but not the numbers, then if that, I agree with that too. If that
Okay.
changes, that's not a reason not to put it in because it
Right.
might change. Okay,
Right.
so I'll just say we endorse how it is basically. But
Okay.
having it
Yeah.
in there, not to totally scrap it out of there.
Right. I think it should be in there. I don't know,
Yeah.
Sapta or Nancy.
Yeah, I agree. I think it should be in there.
Okay.
Sure. I was muted. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It should be.
Okay. And then the other point that Debbie brought up was that noise, any type of noise. And I agree. I know that we've discussed certain types of noise are going to be difficult for us to enforce, like, something that happens in the middle of the night. I think the natural thing is for the resident or whoever to call the police.
Right,
So I think that we can be a resource and be pulled in as needed. I think, go ahead, Heather.
and that's pretty standard. I think that,
Okay.
The enforcing agent could be a committee member or the police or a Board of Health member, but
Yeah.
the complaints are going to go through police in general. But it's some kind of similar to how we talked about the mask, the complaint, they can
Yeah.
provide the write-up and the data to us, but
I would almost entertain taking a field trip. Like I would be interested in going to Ken's and seeing what they've done, because it's
Yep.
one thing to talk about it at a
no, I
meeting.
agree, Nancy. Yeah,
I'm an extremely visual learner.
Yep. No, I
and,
agree.
I don't think it would be a bad idea if
Yep.
we went and especially these, on behalf of these neighbors, I'd like to see what they're dealing with. I mean, I don't care to go at 2 a.m. But
Right, that's right.
if
The
we
noise
went,
is.
I
is
want
during the
them
night,
to
but
tell us what they've been doing the last 2 years that these people have been complaining, and speak to them directly. Why are these trucks idling here? Do they get rent? Like, do they get money from allowing this? Like, what is their impetus to have all these? I'm assuming it's almost like a rental thing, right? There's got to be some benefit to Ken's, because I remember at one of our meetings, some of these trucks aren't even related to Ken's, correct? They're not.
absolutely, they're
So why are they there?
distributors? So they're distributors. So an outside truck is coming to take product, to elsewhere.
So maybe they should be elsewhere, unless this is a financial boon. I don't know. That's why I wouldn't mind going to Ken's and figuring out what the hell's going on, quite for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
I need to see it, I think.
Yeah.
And I think they need to see us, quite honestly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think they need to see us to know that we are, concerned for these neighbors. This is terrible.
Right.
Is that
So,
something
Heather-
you could schedule?
Can you maybe
Reach out.
work with
Yeah.
Ken's and
Yeah.
see, it's, and if, I don't know that we can all go at the same time, just given our quorum. So Nancy, if you want to
Sure.
work with Heather and do I'm totally fine. And you can report back to us. I mean, I'd be happy for at least one of us to be able to do that.
I know we've done this before. I think all of us went to the dispensary site, their main thing in Medway. So we'll figure it out. But
Okay.
Yeah, I think
we
it's
have to field
Marlboro.
trips
They have a site.
together.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I can check with the
I'd be
town
happy to
clerk.
go.
and-
I'd be happy to go as the representative. Yeah.
Okay, that would be great. Sapta, are you good with that if we can't all go? If
Yeah, I
Nancy's
think
kind
Nancy,
of-
that'd be great. That would be great if
Yeah.
you could be a representative. I think you'd be awesome as our representative.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be great.
Well, I
Yeah.
just need to see it because it's just hard
Yeah.
for me to wrap my
Have you
brain.
been before or no, Nancy?
I've been not inside Ken's.
Not
No, I have
inside.
not.
Mhm.
No.
Gotcha.
And I have nothing
Okay.
against winds. I just want to see.
No, right, right. And
review.
it's actually not very noisy the time I went during the day. But yes, you could understand more about all these trucks.
Yeah, I want to
Yep.
see where these trucks are idling, where
Yeah.
this all is going on, where this expansion is. I mean, I just need to wrap my brain around it, but I do feel like it's been going on way too long.
That would be great, Nancy, if you can
Sure.
take the lead on that. Okay. Okay. So I think we're good on Ken's. We have a path and direction. On the noise bylaw, is everybody comfortable with at least the section 9 as presented? I think I'm reading that right. And working on a rules and reg specific to Board of Health.
Yes.
Okay, so Heather, are you good on that then to go back to?
Yeah, yeah. But
Okay.
you want to kind of keep it as is. There's talk of even shortening it down into just a couple sentences with those regs listed. But I think that at least it gives some understanding to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
again, I would say leave it as is.
I agree.
Agreed.
Question of what they want at the beginning of the document or the end of the document, I don't think that really matters, but I would just say maybe that all three of you are recommending that that be as written.
Yep.
Sounds good to
Okay.
me.
Great.
Agree.
Okay, process for tobacco regulations in Southborough, Heather.
So as you know, we're looking at a number of the regulations and sort of bringing our town's regulations kind of up to date, because there has been newer state fining structures. There's been newer state, flavor bans. There's been newer state regulations, and then some decisions on the municipal levels. Level I sent out to board members. I don't know if Nancy, you returned an email.
What's
Nancy.
that? I did read your information. Yes, I did. I
Okay.
got all.
Good. But if you could tell me your kind of what you would like to see in the regulation in terms of some of those municipal decisions, which was
Okay.
it was like a checklist document.
Oh, I did see that. I didn't get
Yes
to
and
that. I
no. If you could
apologize.
do,
Yes.
if you could do that checklist,
Sure.
although I have gotten, I don't know if Chelsea's, I got yours written, but I did speak with you twice, so I have a good sense of where you were, but sometimes my brain might forget, but I do have a good sense that way. So,
I did see that. I didn't get to that. I apologize.
gotcha. Yeah. If you, but I think, I now take that back to both our Metrowest Tobacco Control Division,
Okay.
Olivia Dufour. We had a meeting for our region, and I think we meet every other month. She said her spring project was to work with towns on updating regulations because no one did it in COVID, and they're all out of date, although we're already on it. So, but this is going to be going through other towns as well, and to start working on language for the document, and then start looking to, again, hold a public hearing about this as well. So I can take that back. And Nancy,
So
if
Heather, what do
have
you,
your comments
sorry.
on the checklist? That's all.
Heather, what are you thinking on timing for a hearing for this?
Well, I would ask you, like, do you do the hearing once you kind of have the document crafted? I would think
Yeah.
you public, you present that document, and then I think rightly you would do a week or two in advance to
Yeah.
post that, and
think
then
you
to
have
have that.
Post it 2 weeks
So
in
I don't know if
advance.
we can get that done, April, May, June, before the summer, or.
Okay. Okay. I was thinking probably no earlier than May,
Right.
but I just didn't know if you had a sense.
Yeah, I don't, because I work with folks to help craft the document. I don't know how that process.
Okay, Okay.
goes.
that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Thank you for the legwork on that. All right, review and vote on new health director job description. So thank you, Heather and Safdar, I think, for updating this one. I just had a few, well, I guess Safdar, or Heather, do you want to speak to the changes that you made?
Well, there was one section that wasn't filled out at all, that Safdar and I worked on. I believe that was maybe skills section. that
I think it was
we-
qualifications.
Well,
and
qualifications, I believe I added
knowledge.
recently because, knowledge. Maybe there was one section that wasn't filled out at all.
Yeah,
So we filled that, but then I was looking through them because I was looking through a lot of other job postings in the state. And I looked at the assistant health director nurse position. It had like a 2-line qualifications about the BSN or the RN. So I added a qualification section because there wasn't one before, but
got it.
just what you guys think.
So I can start on the essential job functions. What is the difference between, then this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, the 9th bullet. What's the difference between the on-site wastewater treatment and Title V?
On-site wastewater treatment covers a lot more things
Okay,
with
Title V would be
septic.
included.
That just, I mean, Title V is that specific regulation, but there's a lot of other pieces potentially in each house, each residential and, business septic. There's more than just Title V when you're looking at the septic.
So would Title V be included in on-site
Yeah.
wastewater treatment?
I think
Okay.
so, right?
Okay,
It's just a more general description.
got it.
Title
Okay.
V, or should we put both? I just, no, it's not plants, it's just on-site water treatment, which is a septic system. It's basically what that means. It's everyone has their own, who are on-site water treatment. Yeah, I mean, I just thought that was broader because we're
Okay,
not
no, I just wanted,
Title V septic. Do you see what I'm saying? We're looking
do,
at
yeah.
the septic for each property, but it involves more than Title V.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. And on the represent Board of Health on committees and respond to questions on behalf of Board of Health. So this is like 4 more bullets
Right.
down on that section. Should we add ex officio?
As committee member, you mean?
Yeah,
Like I said, I took that from a different job posting.
okay,
Just so you know, like I said, I looked at others, but I think that right. For example, folks might call me about, sort of in real time, about a decision. I know with the school, I think that's kind of written
Yeah.
into theirs that they check with the Board of Health, but they check with me and we're not going to have a meeting, that day. So that was the one about
Yeah.
answering questions as Board of Health, and then as committee member. But currently I'm on the noise committee as an ex officio, but
yeah. I mean, maybe it will just be assumed based on the charge that you would get assigned to. I don't know that it matters that it's in there or not. I just
as
read it.
Nancy and Safdar, yeah, I don't know about.
Do we, I guess, would it help if it was in there? I mean, does it make a difference?
I mean, I think we usually when a charge comes up, I guess it
Right.
says the health director, it calls out the specific title and an ex officio. So I think you're probably covered in the individual charge. I don't think you probably need it. I don't feel that strongly about it. So if you guys don't.
I don't think.
I don't
I'm
preference.
not
All
worried
right,
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my only other comment, I guess, relates back to the bullet with the on-site wastewater treatment.
Mhm.
I would like it to say provide insight and perform inspections more than just at times, which I think ties in with the qualifications on being a registered sanitarian within 18 months of hire. I just, you know, I think that with such a small department and having, you know, a full-time nurse assistant health director, that would complement, kind of round out the department. And I am perfectly fine with the 18 months. So whoever came up with that,
Again, I
definitely
saw that
appreciate-
in other, that's what I saw in other postings.
Okay, so maybe that's the
Um,
direction that things are going,
And
if you're seeing it.
I did see it in some, but I only ever saw it as preferred, I believe. I don't know that it's a requirement because there's a lot of folks who do this who don't have that and who've already done this for years and they're not going to go back and do that.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So I don't think
Yeah,
I would
no,
ever
I-
put it as
I
a
get it.
requirement.
I mean, this is one thing that I have been struggling with all along. So I really, I agree with everything that's in there. That's the only thing that I'm hung up on.
Well, I don't understand how you're.
I would
hung
like
up
it to
on
say
the
provide
part-
insight and perform inspections. And I'm okay with having the 18 months to get it, if that's the direction that we go in.
Right, but so are you okay with the qualification section? I mean, I added that.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Okay.
think, because I think that gives the board, you know, I think we're still in this influx period, right? With what, you know, all of these things. I just want to have the flexibility that, you know, if this position, you know, gets the sanitarian license, right? Or
Right.
has the qualifications to be a sanitarian.
Right, I mean,
that They
okay,
do
but,
that.
right, but just so you know, I mean, right, you either want to take it as it's written, you know, like I said, I kind of updated the document. There's also, you know, folks, you can be a soil evaluator and a Title V. You don't, registered sanitarian is kind of a more there's plenty of folks doing septic inspections who aren't registered sanitarians. So I don't want you to think, that's how I'm seeing it written for the health directors is preferred, but I don't want you to think that that's not a requirement for doing septic full-time. I
Okay.
guess is the way to say it.
That's not a requirement to do
Nope.
septic full-time.
Correct.
Got it. Meaning you don't have to be a registered sanitarian to do septic full-time. Okay.
Inspection.
Which I'm fine with, because I think, like, especially if we do head towards regionalization, I feel like we'll have health directors and then we'll have, you know, sanitarians that can do
Health
multiple towns.
Right.
And like, that's something that could be easily shared, I feel like. Am I wrong?
Right.
No, you're not. I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I think I'm just trying to make sure that we have flexibility to
Well,
do
that's
all
what's
options.
giving that is flexibility. It says
Yeah.
preferred. It doesn't say required, but
Right.
the actual
Right, I agree. I think because it
inspection
says
and soil
preferred.
evaluator are different.
Right.
Are a different, more specific, quicker to get qualifications. A
Yeah,
registered
so-
sanitarian. I also saw in that blueprint document, but the registered sanitarian is, you know, many, it's not something you do in 3 months because it involves education, like certain, like background kind of coursework and work experience, exam. But I don't know, if which people have this and which don't. It's, I've seen it in job listings and that's why I put it. But I
Yeah.
think that, it's not required to do septic. There's kind of more like soil evaluator, there's kind of
Right.
more specific.
So
Right.
that's, so I don't have an issue with the qualifications. I'm hung up on the 9th bullet
Okay.
where it
Well,
says,
ask-
and
right,
at times.
right.
I think
Well,
it
then
should say,
talk to-
and
Right.
perform.
Well, talk to Safter and Nancy about that.
I mean, I think, to me, I think at times makes more sense because I think, again, regionalization, this is where we'll share these resources. And I still, to me, having a public health director that can perform them if needed is better because I don't think that should be a requirement of that position. I think we need, I think the public health director is, again, we've seen her as an overseer, right? So I think the ability, it's preferred if they can perform, and if they're needed to perform them, they can. But I don't think that we should say that they should be there for every inspection when that is a potential shared resource between our boroughs.
I mean, I agree.
But what if it's not?
There's a lot of septic. I think it depends on towns. Like if you have a town that's primarily sewer, you probably, this may
Right.
not be an issue. But I don't think it should be required either. I mean, we have directors at the hospital that I'm pretty sure would not feel comfortable working in the ICU, if they had, but they are great directors. So, I mean, I think you are directing. It doesn't mean you have to perform every task required as long as there is someone who's able to do that.
So, and I agree with your hospital analogy, Nancy. I think where I'm getting hung up is, let's take our current scenario, right? We have like 16 to 18 hours a week. I would like to be able to have this position answer a resident question when our inspector's not there, right? Like I understand, we kind of still don't know what's going to happen in the long term. I'm just trying to make it so that that we have flexibility depending on what comes our way. And that's why, obviously we have there's shared service right now, and we have food and housing pretty much covered. But if something were to come up that our resource wasn't available, then Heather could fill in. I don't know. I read at times as, I think it's going to be, I would like to see it be more regular than at times, I guess. Because I just don't know what's going to happen.
Right. But isn't that at times when the person isn't available? So that I think covers that, is that, Heather is available, or public health director is available to answer questions, to provide the oversight that's needed. So it's sort of, I think the way it's worded covers what you're saying, because we, versus making it a requirement that the health director perform every inspection,
And don't we have that per diem person that can answer questions that what was that gentleman, not from Sudbury or somebody, help me out, Heather. Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah.
That's like if Dennis
He
is
is
out
from
of town,
Sudbury. Yeah.
he would, yes.
But couldn't
you're
he
right.
answer those questions? Because I mean, Paul had all those qualifications, but then what hurt us was he didn't have the information really to deal with a pandemic. So we're always going to be, unless you have this superhero that is school, has 5,000 certifications. I mean, there's always going to be something that not all of us are capable of doing that.
So how about this? How about we accept this job description and we modify if we go regional, and then we adapt to whatever that needs. I mean, this is with it, like, this is a contract position, so this is our job description. This doesn't go to personnel. This is us.
Okay. Yeah.
Agreeing to it, like this, like the kind of the buck stops here. Like this is just us kind of memorializing what we want this position to do, right? And so I'm okay. Like for the next year, I'm good with this, right? Like I'm maybe getting my head of myself with like looking 5 to 10 years down the road, and that's I guess what I'm focused on. So I'm okay with this as written for the next year. Is that fair? kind of where
Yes.
I'm at? Okay.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. And I, and I think we may be in the direction that Nancy and I are talking about at this point, where we will, we're going to go to. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. I mean, obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months, right? So I think we just need to be flexible. So, okay. And I was good because it included the Title V. So, okay. So I'll make a motion to accept the revised health director job description, and we'll revisit once a regional opportunity presents itself.
I second the motion and vote aye. I think that's great. Yep.
And I vote aye.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So just so you know, next agenda, I will add an executive session for us to discuss contract negotiations for this position.
Okay.
Okay. All right. The Metrowest Health Foundation grant, Heather, we got the money. Constant Contact's underway. Is there
Yep.
anything else that you want to give an update on?
There's an iHealth order in between the 3 towns, just different things that we're using the money for. So the antigen, which we will get some tests, which we're going to use for our vulnerable population, seniors, housing. We are going to look into purchasing and point of care COVID testing for our employees, potentially also our teachers. And yeah, so we if anyone question about the grants, but we're starting to spend the money. I guess that's the way to say it.
Awesome. Nice work on that. Thank you. Okay, town meeting safety protocol. So I don't think we've met since the selectmen voted to do town meeting at Algonquin on May 4th. And if it spills over to May 5th at 6:30, I believe, indoors. So the selectmen felt that this gave the most flexibility, especially because the Board of Health's current position is masking and 6 feet apart. Now, obviously, that could change, but that's kind of that's where we are at today. And obviously, Algonquin's a lot bigger than Trotter, so can space out more if needed, and obviously take on more residents. So that's what's been decided. Do you want to have a discussion on the 6 feet and the masking, or do you want to give it some more time?
I think we should right now I'd be ready, but you just don't know what's coming. May is a long way off.
Yeah.
I'm really hoping we won't need that, but I just, I have a fear some variant will show up and we'll be, I don't want to, I guess I'm just not ready yet.
I agree with Nancy. This is a large gathering for a long period of time indoors. And I think, we can wait and see where we are. I mean, that would 2 weeks before even be enough? Because I think that would.
I don't think 2 weeks. So I
Mhm.
need to double check with the town clerk on the timing of his vendors.
Okay.
So we may need to do it at our April 12th meeting at the latest. But I will
Okay.
confirm with them.
Could we
Okay.
say, like, if things were, going in the right direction, say, and we decided that we weren't going to do masking, maybe not social distancing, if things changed and there was a big surge, like, could we put that into our recommendation? Like, if cases increase, the week before, like, we would change our like, is that something you can do, or?
Yeah, I mean, so I think the masking is less concerning because that the masking isn't really any sort of logistical issue
Right.
for the town clerk. It's the distancing.
Yep.
So
Right.
we could recommend so I guess the question is, let's say we recommend no distancing and no masking today, right? And then the week before we have a surge, would we recommend masking then? Or would we recommend distancing? Because that would make a difference.
Right. So, for me, what I would say is, like, the distancing is a great mitigation strategy. Like if people didn't want to wear a mask, but we kept the distancing in place, I think people would be okay with that. But because of course you can always choose to wear a mask as well.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think people are going to be choosing to wear masks, for quite a while, and that's
Mhm.
certainly everybody's prerogative.
Right.
So I think if we leave the distancing and plan for that, I mean, it's probably not a bad idea anyways, you know what I mean?
That's what I think. It's like the distancing, like you said, Chelsea, is the part that takes a little bit of strategy. So if we left that in
Yeah.
place and then, said masks encouraged, but they are optional. I think,
Yeah,
I don't know how other people feel about
I
that.
mean, we're looking at the structure of Algonquin. I mean, you could have like the household members would sit together and then have
Right.
an empty seat and then household members sit together.
sure.
So it's not, I don't think it's a huge logistical issue. I mean, I think the hard part, someone's alone, you can't really tape off certain chairs
Yeah.
because
Right.
there's a number of people from a household that come to the meeting. But so there's no way of enforcing that necessarily. You would assume that people won't sit with people that aren't in their household.
Right. Which they sort of did last year outside even. We had little pods of, groups of, yeah.
Yeah. And that's how it was in the gym, at
Sure.
least at
Yeah.
Trotter for the
Yeah.
fall. I wasn't in the auditorium, so I'm not clear on exactly what that looked like. I mean,
Oh, yeah, I was in the gym. I didn't see the auditorium either.
I
Yeah.
feel like if
Yeah.
you choose to sit next to someone who's not in your family, then you're assuming that risk on your own. If we're saying like, don't, right?
Right.
right. Let me talk to the clerk and see what, so I think as of right now, we're supportive of people distancing,
Mhm.
like have the capability for people to distance,
Yeah.
Right.
right? People are going to choose, if we leave it like that, people are going to choose not to distance too.
Right. Because we're still seeing cases in the hospital. I just think it's a little too soon.
Yeah.
Okay, so then let me find out what the deadline is for him to know if we're, how conservative we'll be. And I'll leave this on the 12th, and if we need to discuss it before then, I'll let you know. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. All right. Director Nurse COVID report. So case numbers.
Sure.
Kayla?
So hang on, let me just pull it up here. So cases are continuing to decrease. Just a comparison from January to February. In January, we had 589 cases, and in February, we had 82, which is fantastic, headed in the right direction. Steady stream of small amounts of cases. I think the other thing is that we've said before is like, we don't get cases anymore who are doing rapid tests, so we don't really know
Right.
the true numbers, but everything seems to be headed in the right direction.
Right. And that's why CDC, I believe, has changed their metric, and it's a little bit less about incidents or cases diagnosed because folks are doing home testing. So the state or the town is not aware of positive cases, and the Stop the Spread sites at the end of March are going to be decreasing. There's going to be some, but they're going to be decreasing. So I think there'll be less and less testing that is reported unless it's done, in a healthcare facility. And so the metrics involves, new admissions to hospitals, as well as percentage of hospital beds that are taken up with COVID patients, and the incidence. They're still using that, but the kind of the metrics going forward, I think will be less and less about case numbers.
Yeah.
Hospitalization is important, if enough folks are getting the disease, or if the disease is of a more virulent strain, we're looking at hospital numbers, but right, the actual numbers of cases is going to be something that's followed less and less.
Which right now for the new CDC guidelines, they do it by county, not by individual town. So Worcester County this past week became what's considered low risk. So they have low, medium, and high risk. The week before we were medium risk. low risk, their definitions say like, if you don't want to wear a mask indoors, you don't have to, like low risk of transmission basically, and you're kind of free to do what you want, for lack of better terminology. In the medium risk category, it says if you're immunocompromised, you should talk to your healthcare professional about what would be the best strategy for you to protect yourself against disease, as far as like, doing things indoors, such as wearing a mask, etc. And then high risk, it says everyone should be masking indoors and taking extra precautions to prevent transmission.
And you said we're low right now?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions on that?
No, I think it's very
That's-
encouraging. So, and now the good weather is coming, I'm very optimistic.
Yeah, summer, that has been the trend. Summer has been
Yeah.
better here in New England.
That's the prediction, right?
Okay, vaccine clinics. I know that you put out a listing for people to sign up for when it's
Yep.
available. But other than that, you want to give an update?
That's really it. Pfizer pulled their EUA. So it's kind of on hold. They're planning on resubmitting sometime in April is kind of the rumor. And once that is approved, we will put together some clinics for folks who are interested in the under 5 vaccine. I have an interest form out. I'll re-push it out once it's, back in the works.
Great.
And we're also working with one more clinic, really for primary vaccine series for our school population. So we might do an evening in April in Northborough, where we're going to target public school students who are not vaccinated.
Great. That's great. Okay.
Awesome.
So regular meeting scheduled. So we talked about April 12th as being our next regular meeting. If the clerk gets back to me that we need to make any decisions before that, then I'll let you know.
Wasn't there
And
that one decision that Andrew Dennington was talking
on
about?
the Andrew,
before
yeah. So on the warrant, there's an article that probably needs our input. But I'd like to get council's opinion before we discuss it. So I don't know what everyone's schedule looks like. Nancy, I know Tuesday mornings are generally good for staff. Nancy, do you have any Tuesdays the end of March that you're not working?
Actually, I have my schedule right here. Shoot, the 29th I'm on, the 22nd I'm on.
Okay. What about the 28th? Could you do that?
I'm on in the ICU on the 28th. On the 29th, I'm in endoscopy. So, I could do a afternoon meeting on the 29th. Would that work for anybody?
Like what time does?
So, anytime after like 2:33, because I usually get out by then in endo.
After, how does that work for you?
Maybe Nancy's or Chelsea, if Monday morning works, I can do a Monday morning.
I could do the 21st. Could we do the Monday, the 21st?
I can't do that one.
Okay.
How do Fridays work for you? Or
yeah, Fridays I could do the 25th.
Safdar could.
It would have to be really early though. So, work or at noontime.
I could do noon.
Noon on the 25th.
Okay. I can do that.
It will just be on either a town meeting. It won't be a 2-hour meeting.
Right.
It'll just be on the warrant article.
Right.
Anything that we need to wrap up for noise, which I think we're good on that one, and on town meeting logistics.
Okay. I would have to attend it virtually though. I would have to attend it virtually. If
Okay.
it was at 20.
Okay. That's fine. Me too, because I'll have a kid. Okay, that's fine. Okay.
So
And then
meeting on the 25th, we're saying?
yeah, I
Okay,
think that's okay. Yeah.
okay.
All right. And then May 10th was the one after that. We were supposed to go to Personnel Board. I found out yesterday that they're having a scheduling issue. So they're going to try to schedule us for next week. I don't know when yet. So I'll
Okay,
have
not
Barbara reach
tomorrow?
out to you. What'd you
So
say?
no meeting tomorrow at 9.
No,
Okay.
no.
Can you just
Okay.
announce the meetings again noon on the
I'm sorry.
25th of March?
Yes. And then 4:12 and 5:10.
And those are
March.
probably 10:30 unless we hear otherwise.
Yeah, if that works for everyone. Or, I mean, I can do a little bit earlier if you guys want to do that. Doesn't matter.
I'll just keep the day open, so whatever.
After, do you have a
Earlier,
preference?
that works. I'm okay with that
Call and
too.
I'm missing it. I'll be around, apparently. That's how I've been rolling here. Okay. And then the
So how
10th.
about 9? You want to start at 9:30 instead of 10:30?
Sure.
After?
Yeah, I'm okay with
Okay,
starting.
Nancy, is that
early, yeah.
okay?
That's fine. I'll put 9:30 for both of these then on May 10th
All right.
and
April 12th.
April
April
12th.
11th. And then
April
new
12th.
25th. Okay.
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 All right, great. Thank you. And then town meetings on May 4th at
Yeah,
6:30.
I got them. I'm glad it's not when I'm at my daughter's graduation. I was very happy to see those dates.
Right,
So that'll work out.
right. Awesome. Okay.
Hear me. Hey,
Right,
Um,
Barbara?
Chelsea,
Yeah,
we close at 12 on Fridays
okay.
and Friday.
I can run it. I can run it.
Okay.
That's fine. If you can just open it up for me at like 5
Yep.
of. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Okay. Anyone for public comment round 2? Okay, Mr. Lit.
Sorry, you're stuck with me twice in one day.
That's okay.
So first on Andrew's proposed bylaw on issuing rules and regulations. Chelsea, I sent you my comments on that. I generally agree with you
Okay,
that we
great.
need to work through scenarios. It's more than the Board of Health. It's pretty, I think it needs a fair bit of work. I'm generally supportive of it, but as it exists, I don't think it's practical. So Andrew has received both sets of my comments, although he hasn't responded to the second.
Okay,
As far as,
thank you.
sure, as far as going off on an inspection, you can all go. I'm looking at the Attorney General's guidance on the open meeting law, and it starts off, there are 5 exceptions to the definition of a meeting under the open meeting law. 1, members of a public body may conduct on-site inspection of a project or program, however, they may not deliberate at the meeting. And that's
Okay,
been the case with
Got
other
it.
committees as well, so you don't have
Yeah,
to worry about that.
okay.
And I encourage you all to go, so you have a common understanding of what's going on.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that's that. I guess I should admit that I know a little bit about trucks, and I vaguely remember when the anti-idling law went into effect. I think it was like the late 60s or early 70s, at the risk of dating myself slightly. The idling exception really, first off, that was set up as air quality, not noise in the initial presentation of the law. But the idling exception, while handling materials, just so you understand, it really has to do with when you have to run an engine to operate a lift gate or a crane, when you're actively moving materials on and off a truck. It wasn't to do with compressors and stuff, and compressors have generally been separate from the motor that drives the vehicle. So if that helps you to understand a little bit more context, I think people want to read into the language what they would like it to say, but just in terms of the mechanics with a number of trucks, you've seen the lift gates on the back that let you, load furniture or heavy materials down to ground level or a loading dock. Often the hydraulics for that require the engine to be running. And so if that takes you more than 5 minutes, the rule is to allow you to move materials on and off. And if you've seen like building materials delivered at a site where you'll have a crane on the back of a truck and you lift pallets of stuff up and down, or a concrete pumper truck. I mean, those are the kinds of things where, yeah, the engine runs because you're loading and unloading material, not because, you have a compressor running. And then I have one more note for you that I guess my history makes me a little sensitive to. I mean, when you talk about night being more important than day with respect to noise, that's probably generally true. But as someone who has at times worked third shift and, wanted to sleep in the daytime, and, you'll see that in our public safety officers, not just, crazy engineers who have to work when the, systems are down and everyone else is asleep. I know we can't please everybody, but I think you need to be sensitive to the fact that the public isn't just the, traditional, I wake up at 6 in the morning and, I go to bed at 10 at night. And you've seen that in COVID as well. So anyway, now you've had 6 cents for me today.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah, I worked that third shift, Tim. I know. I have to have sound machines on, everything. I know. It's awful.
I had a feeling it would resonate with you and maybe Heather and Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, Mr. Litt, as always.
Thanks, Tim.
Okay, and I don't see anybody else for public
Quickly,
comment. Go ahead.
the state did allow virtual meetings. They extended it through July,
Yes,
just so you know.
Yeah.
I mean, the state's okay with it.
yes. So I think for the 25th, we're going to have to do virtual. I think we need to take care of those few items. But I'll get back to you on the 12th. I mean, would that work for you to meet in person on the 12th? I don't know, Safdar, if that.
I think on the Tuesday, I would be able to meet in person. The Tuesday I'll be out, but other days I'm not. So if we want to call a meeting,
Okay.
I think really the virtual is out of convenience. It's not
Oh,
really.
yeah.
Yeah, and in fact,
Yeah.
the issue at this point is just
Agreed.
right.
Yes. Okay. Nancy, would you be open to doing it in person starting in April?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So let me circle back and I'll let Barbara know. Thank you,
Okay.
Barbara. Okay. Are we good?
That way, maybe you'll see my face.
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever met Nancy.
I had my husband, my daughter. I'm like, it wasn't giving me the option on this tablet, which I've used before. I don't know. I am so technically challenged. It's sad.
But you're here, so that's all that matters.
I need an IT person in my life, apparently.
All right. So I'll make a motion that the Board of Health adjourn at 10:52 a.m.
I second the motion.
I vote aye.
Aye.
And Malinowski's aye. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.
Bye. Stay
Bye.
healthy.